Hello, class. Today, we're going to look at the third of the four most important questions you'll ever ask, which is question 3, where am I going? We looked in week 1 at the first question, why am I here? We saw that Solomon had abundant knowledge and wisdom. He had extensive labors. He had great riches and unparalleled power and prestige. And he also had extravagant fleshly pleasures. Yet, with all of this, Solomon repeatedly stressed the meaninglessness of life under the sun. From an earthly and naturalistic perspective, Solomon declared that it was all grasping at the wind. He also called it vanity, which, if you recall, meant smoke or vapor. The book of Ecclesiastes was written by Solomon to express how he had tried every naturalistic way to find meaning in life. But Solomon tells us at the end of Ecclesiastes in chapter 12, verses 13 and 14, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is man's all. For God will bring every work into judgment, including every secret thing, whether good or evil. Then in week 2, we looked at the question, where did I come from? We saw that atheists feel that life has no meaning. Why? Because they think that we came from nothing, from nowhere. And atheists feel that since we're just the product of an accidental, random event, that our lives have absolutely no purpose. They feel that when our bodies give up their last breath, we will simply cease to exist. They feel that we're of no use after death other than to be worm food or fertilizer. We saw how atheists' view of life and death is fatally flawed, and pardon the pun. Their view is fatally flawed because of 4 things we studied last week. The first thing was that matter demands a maker. The second thing was that life on earth demands a life giver. Thirdly, we saw that complex functional design in the universe demands a designer. And then we saw that the supernatural attributes of the Bible demand a supernatural author. If you didn't get a chance last week to view these, I highly suggest that you do so. But we concluded last week's lesson with this. Not only did God specially make Adam and Eve, but he has uniquely made every spirit of every person since then. Thousands of years after creation, Paul said to an audience of unbelievers in Athens that we are the offspring of God in Acts chapter 17, verses 28 and 29. You see, all human beings are divine image bearers. We all bear God's divine image. All of us are sons and daughters of God by creation. So, we saw why we are here, and we saw where we come from. Now this week, we're looking at the third question in our study. Where am I going? Now, perhaps a grandparent or maybe your mother or your father have passed from this life, maybe even a brother or sister. Many of us have said goodbye to a member of the church or to a friend. Have you ever wondered what happens to them? Have you ever wondered where they've gone? When people that you know die, you may feel emotions such as shock or disbelief, making it difficult to accept what's happened. And it's times like these that you desperately want to know the truth. Supposing the person is safe and looking down from heaven is just not enough. You're skeptical, but you're not completely satisfied with mere speculation. And then you think, well, what about me? What will happen to me when I die? If a person is an atheist, then to them there is no God, and this supposed accidental material realm is all there is. So we're not going anywhere when our short lives are over. And in fact, in a 1994 debate at Stanford University on Darwinism, atheistic professor William Provine summarized his views on modern evolutionary biology and its loud and clear implications. According to Dr. Provine, and this is a quote, "There are no gods, no purposes, and no goal-directed forces of any kind. There's no life after death." And then he says, "When I die, I am absolutely certain that I'm going to be dead, and that's the end of me. There's no ultimate meaning in life." But Dr. Provine is wrong. There is ultimate purpose, because the evidence, as we saw in our previous questions, shows us that an eternal spiritual creator exists and that he has revealed to us why we're here and where we're going. So where are we going? To be blunt, we're all on our way to the grave. But what then? Well, the supernatural author of the Bible has much to say about it. And since God filled the Bible with information about where we're going when we die, we need to know what God has said. Solomon wrote, "The living know that they will die," Ecclesiastes 9:5. That's just a fact of life. Every living being knows that they're going to die. The Hebrew writer in the New Testament wrote, "It is appointed for men to die once." Once again, every human being knows that. Even the professor who said that when I die, I'm just gone, knows that. Yet, upon further reading, we know that the day of physical death is not the end. After reminding us to reflect upon where we came from, Solomon revealed that man's spirit will return to God who gave it in Ecclesiastes 12:7. When Moses wrote the book of Genesis, he told of Jacob's wife Rachel and about her death while giving birth to Benjamin. Moses wrote, "And so it was, as her soul was departing, for she died, that she called his name Ben-Oni, but his father called him Benjamin. So Rachel died and was buried." So we see that her soul left her when she died. And just as Rachel's soul departed her body at death, and that's in Genesis 35:18, so does the spirit of every man. And James 2:26 in the New Testament tells us that the body without the spirit is dead. People, I want you to catch this. We are spirits currently living in a human body. When our bodies die, we don't simply cease to exist, but we enter the Creator's eternal spirit realm to await our judgment. And then twice in the final 16 verses of Ecclesiastes, we saw that God will bring you into judgment. Ecclesiastes 11:9. In fact, God will bring every work into judgment, including every secret thing, whether good or evil. Ecclesiastes 12:14. In the New Testament, Paul, after instructing the Athenians about where they came from, telling them that we are the offspring of God, we saw that last week in Acts 17:29, Paul told them where they came from, which was question 2. So then, he logically directed their attention to question 3. Where are we going? Paul said that God has appointed a day on which he will judge the world in righteousness by the man whom he has ordained. Acts 17:31. Well, who has been ordained to judge? Jesus said that the Father will judge no one, but that we will all be judged by the Son of God, to whom the Father has committed all judgment. Jesus said that in John 5:22. When you've read and studied the Bible for a while, you see that the coming judgment is a constant theme in the New Testament. In fact, when the judge, who is Jesus, previously came to earth, he repeatedly warned mankind, especially in his parables, of his coming judgment. In fact, many of Jesus' parables were given to teach about the coming judgment. Now we find 3 of Jesus' parables about judgment in the 25th chapter of Matthew. He tells of the wise and foolish virgins. Then he tells the parable of the talents. Then Jesus outright says that when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the holy angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them one from another, as a shepherd divides his sheep from the goats. Jesus speaks of separating all people at the judgment, just like people then separated their sheep and goats. Jesus continually reminded man of where we are going. And Jesus also stressed that no one knows when the time of judgment will come. That's Matthew 24:36. In fact, the Apostle Peter says, the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, 2 Peter 3:10. He says it will come suddenly and unexpectedly. The Bible refers to our lives here as the time of your stay upon earth, 1 Peter 1:17. And like a stay at a hotel for a brief period of time, we are all just passing through this world. That's why the Bible tells us in the 2nd chapter of 1 Peter that we are just sojourners and pilgrims. We sing that song, "This world is not my home." Well, this planet is not our home, but it's only a temporary residence. Your body is not your permanent house for your spirit. According to the Apostle Peter in the 1st chapter of 2 Peter, his body was just a tent that he would soon get rid of. The bottom line is this: if this physical realm lasts much longer, we're all going to die. But whether we die prior to Jesus' return or whether he comes in our lifetime, and if he does that, then we'll avoid that physical death. Regardless of what happens, we are all going somewhere forever. We are returning to our Maker, Ecclesiastes 12:7. We are going to judgment. And then we are either going to, like the sheep Jesus described in Matthew 25, receive eternal life, or like the goats, be doomed to eternal punishment. We are going to either heaven or hell. Now, we all obviously want to go to heaven. And next week, we'll look at question 4. How do I get there? And remember, sometime this week, study. I want you to pray for the church, pray for our elders, pray for the sick, pray for our nation, and pray for the world during these difficult times. If you get the opportunity, go back over the previous lessons. And, as Sally says, be sweet. See you next week.